everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Radiorama, where its name implies I show you how to work on radios. And today we have this Invicta Model 73. It's a British radio, and it's an interesting story behind the set, which is it came in with someone who actually moved here from England a long time ago. I subsequently don't think it's ever been plugged in since it came here, because I took apart the plug already, and the plug, you can see that clearly ain't American. It is a it's a 5-tube set with a power transformer, and it says that it can either work on 250 or 110 volts. I'm not exactly sure quite how that happens, because this selector here for the different voltages only is in the 200 volt range, so I'm assuming that there's something else in here, probably inside where there's a tap that needs to be resoldered somewhere else, but we'll find that out as soon as I take it apart. Well, I pulled the guts out, and this was underneath. It's the original operating instructions, and it said, as supplied, the receiver is suitable for mains from 200 to 260 volts. If required for operation on 100 to 130 volts AC/DC, the upper two tags of the mains resistance should be joined together with wire provided, and figures on the voltage adjustment panel will then be halved. The upper two tags of the mains resistance. I think I can maybe figure that out, see if it says anything. Well, here's a schematic. I was about to download a schematic from Radio Museum, but I found it to be a pain in the butt to use that site. So where on this can we change to 110 volts? Because I don't really want this to run on 220 volts, because then whoever gets it will have to have a transformer. So here's the incoming power, I believe. And those are all the tubes. So you need to find out where this giant resistor is. I saw it on the chassis. Let me get the chassis. Well, here we are. I have been playing around with this, trying to figure out how to connect the right leads together. And when I read this over and I looked at the schematic, I was pretty sure that joining this part of the resistor would have done the trick. But instead, I think I'm seriously only getting about not even half the voltage required. That's the pilot light. I can barely tell it's on. So I need to figure out how to get to the right voltage setting. Hey everybody, this is actually probably day number 3 of working on the British radio, and I wound up taking it to the museum because I was getting stumped. And me and Rajesh worked on it for a little bit, and first is that a lot of the capacitors in here were actually pretty shorted. The second thing is we looked at the instructions in the schematic a few times and determined that it's these two leads. Wait a minute, now I'm getting all messed up. It's these two leads and these two that need to be stuck together. Actually, what we're going to be doing is just probably getting rid of that resistor entirely, because all it's doing is dropping it down so it can operate on 120. I really don't like that resistor because it's got some stuff on it that I'm not thrilled about, because I'm going to guess those discs, that's got to be asbestos. It's not friable or anything, but you can't put anything on top of it, like it'll just burn right off. So that's aggravating. I don't know, maybe I can put some high heat paint on it and just see how hot this gets. It may not even get hot anymore. If I'm canceling it out, it may just sit there, so that may be a possibility. Anyway, we'll see if this theory works. Well, here we are. The resistors are wired up. So I still don't trust that. So let me check to see if there's anything bad happening. I keep on talking about this not working, but actually it is. It's just that these transformerless radios take so little as far as amperage that they're not going to register much. Anyway, I'm going to start off at maybe 60 volts. Of course, it's not registering much. That show it's drawing about 5 watts at what voltage? Well, it says it right there. I keep on forgetting, and I bought that. My friend made this for me, so I don't have to keep on looking at this. All right, so we'll keep an eye on this and work our way up slowly to 110 degrees. So far, it's not pulling much, and doesn't look like anyone's home. On the pilot lights, I'm hearing a little bit, and we're about 90 volts, and it's drawing 10 watts. 100 volts, almost at 100 degrees. Nope. All right, that's about what current US voltage is now.
And they deny that Jesus. So yeah, let this sink in. Don't women choose for themselves to get married? Because too many women will choose to do so. If
not confess Jesus is 3 weeks.
Are important that we
clarity on parts to grow jobs here in the U.S. First, Osprey spoke in favor of Gulf Arab ties with Israel, condemned by.
Use clearing the tents just moves people around until they return.
Now, granted, I got it hooked up to my roof antenna. By the way, I spent years doing something stupid. I've had this crappy wire going up and over my roof and into a tree so I can test my radios. But for years, I just had a wire like crammed over there. Well, I was like, you know what? I should make a dedicated alligator clip for my antenna. So I did. And it's cleverly secured there. And that way I can just have it there. And I put a big piece of red tape around it so it's obvious. Don't use that for other things. And that is a very jury-rigged thing. But that's okay. So it does work. That's not even getting warm. And for the sake of originality, I'm going to leave it like that. So if it's not going to get warm, I'm going to coat that stuff, asbestos, with some sort of coating to keep it sealed in. This thing is filthy. I did an initial clean on it, and it's just still grubby as hell. So I want to clean it up a little bit so that I can also get in here and start lubricating and cleaning up some of these contacts and stuff. I don't know where this thing was, but I mean, it's been in the U.S. for a very long time, but before that, I don't know if it was in a barn or what. Well, I didn't realize the chassis was green, or greenish, or whatever color that is, but it was. And I spent way more time than I ever cared to admit cleaning all of this. It was filthy. It's like they had this just layer of filth that I removed in layers. And I mean, it's still not great looking, but it's at least not, doesn't look like it came out of a barn anymore. I put some clear water-based polyurethane on top of that. I had this jug I've had in the garage forever, so it's real thick and everything, so I just daubed some on there, top and bottom. And that way there won't be any loose asbestos flying through the air. And now what I'm going to do, because I've got a little bit of daylight left, is I'm going to go out there and work on the cabinet a little bit, because it needs a little love too. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up the cabinet a little bit. I've already started with the inside. Don't ask me why I did the inside. Probably the same reason that I cleaned the chassis. I cleaned it up in here. I didn't clean up the chalk marks though, because I kind of like that. That's kind of showing people like who was in here before. Someone on the factory line from long ago. Anyway, there's a little bit of grime that's kind of around the knob area, which is to be expected. I use generally a little bit of gentle cleaner. Why is this stuck on there like that? I don't know, but that's pretty gross. I'm sure the knob will cover it up, but I'll try to get the rest of that off. Well, I am going to now go over this finish, which is actually not bad shape, with a product called Old English. And I'm only just now kind of thinking about how ironic it is that I'm using this American product, which has nothing to do with English people or their customs or anything. A furniture product called Old English on an Old English radio. So it's like a palindrome almost. But anyway, it does work pretty good. It goes in and kind of like fills in the little microscopic scratches and crap that have befallen this thing over the years from who knows doing what in jolly old England before making its way to California, where it's not been in use apparently for who knows how long. I get a feeling it wasn't used in England that long if it came over here, you know, that long ago. So if we get this lit up again, it's going to be the first time it's going to be a useful radio, as in useful in its current country, probably in a very long time. Maybe that's why I'm spending a little more extra time on this, because like we just don't get British radios here at all. Like they weren't sold here. Occasionally I run across them, but it seems like a lot of them are just like in really bad shape. And I thought maybe this one was in bad shape too, but I think the more I work on it, the more I can see it actually wasn't in bad shape at all. It was just really dirty, and that's okay. Well, look at that. Isn't that better looking? But here's the thing. It's wet looking because I put the Old English all over it. And so most of that will come off. And that's a temporary look. And it's also kind of oily and ugly looking. But this probably did come with a little bit of factory gloss. And I'm going to restore that gloss and also get some of the remainder of the grubbiness off of it, because I can tell it's just a little bit dirty. I'm going to use this mechanical buffer. Actually, it's an attachment for my drill, and it shouldn't be that fast because if I put wax on it, it's going to splatter me. More like that. And I use Meguiar's car wax, except at the moment things are so crazy with prices that the premium paste wax is about the same price as the regular, and it smells nice. It smells like lemon meringue pie or something like that. But anyhow, the idea here is you very slowly remove dirt and grime, and also kind of clean up and polish the finish on it. It'll basically do the same thing that it would do to your car. Welcome to the next day working on the Invicta radio, and kind of have a stupid confession that I need to make, because things like this happen even to those of us who have been doing this a while, and it just comes to show how easy it is to make repeated mistakes. Because I've made this same exact mistake I'm about to describe before, which is yesterday I got to work cleaning up the chassis, and I really tried to, do a good job. But inadvertently, it probably wound up getting some moisture in something, because when I fired it up before I went in last night, it made a very loud hum. Like a bad AC hum. And at first I thought, well, I must have touched something under the chassis, or something's touching or whatever. But what it was is something that I've accidentally, well, not really accidentally, I should have known better to do this. Water got into something. And so what I did is I went inside for the night and I just let it sit so that maybe it would dry out. And then I figured I would come out and test it out again. Lo and behold, I think it works. So whatever was in there that was damp must have caused the problem, because now it seems like it works reasonably well. It does take a little bit of time to warm up, like a little more than as I would expect.
To elect this man again, to make the choice that will allow these people to undermine every fundamental assumption we have, that you could just be disappeared, and then they can argue that, our court is getting...
Messing with your taxes will cause you harsh.
Whoops. Knob came off.
Voters in San Jose City Council District 3 are deciding today who will fill the seat vacated by former council member Omar Torres following his conviction for child sex abuse charges. A special election was called after Torres was arrested last.
What is up with politicians, man? Like, some of the trashiest, awful people. Sometimes I wonder if any of these people would actually make it as professionals. I sure as hell know they wouldn't make it where I work. Anyway.
Are losing interest in electric cars.
No, we're not. Quit spreading that nonsense. Anyhow, I think what I'm going to do is... the cabinet's done. I spent a lot of time cleaning it up and polishing it last night, so it looks pretty good. I also cleaned up the knobs, but since I have realized that even though this is a hot chassis set, anything you can touch has been carefully isolated, then I don't see a reason why I couldn't add an audio input feature so that someone could listen to something else besides AM radio, because this doesn't have FM. And there's not much to listen to on AM radio. And if you are a I don't know, if you don't like listening to news these days, it's probably not the best thing to listen to either, just like what I heard. All it does is make me pissed. So, long story short, I'm going to add the ability to add an audio input feature here. And since this is a hot chassis, as in a real hot chassis, you just can't go in immediately through the volume control. We'll need to go in through one of these. It's an isolation transformer. And what I plan to do is have it to where when we switch bands to something that doesn't have anything on it, we can run the audio through that. That'll be our switch for turning it off and on. If that doesn't work, then I'll have to run a little wire out through somewhere to do it. Alrighty, speaking of that isolation transformer, here I have it perched on my little pad that I used to build things on top of. And all the parts that we need to make this installable are right here. It's a pair of resistors and then a capacitor and another resistor. What we're going to do is this. We're going to have the audio run out of the primary, which is these two prongs furthest separated apart. That'll go to the upper and lower parts of the volume control. And then the secondary is where our incoming audio will come. And since I'm using a stereo cable, and obviously this is not a stereo, that means we need to tie the right and left channels together, which is those red and white wires. And you can do so by tying two resistors together. And you leave their other ends free, the two ends tied together. Anywhere from 30, 40, 50 ohms is fine. You only need quarter watt guys. For the primary, I want to make sure that the isolation transformer doesn't interfere with the radio reception or its performance. So I'm going to create a little bit of a shunt here, which is a resistor and a capacitor. The resistor is 270K, the capacitor is 0.02 microfarads, and that will be for our primary. So I'll wire this all up, and I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll install it. Here it is all wired up, and it's always hard to film this. But on this side where the yellow wire, and actually where all the cable's going, with the right and left channels, that is the secondary side, and the primary side has the resistor, and it's attached to the end of this capacitor that I have like kind of dangling over the end here. The other side is negative, and this cable will go to the volume control, and I cut probably too much length of wire, but I can cut it down. So the next thing I want to do is make sure it actually works, and then if it does, I'll attach it probably about right here. And what I've done is I used one of the existing holes that was already in the chassis, and I installed a rubber grommet, and I tied a knot in the cord so you can't pull it out, and I'll also glue that in so you can't push it through either. Alright, that seems to do the job okay. I just ran it right through there and put it on the other band for the moment. I'm getting a little bit of hum through it, but I think it's because I'm running through my isolation transformer. And this thing, the battery's about to run out, and I got my fluorescent lights on. But otherwise, it seems to be working pretty good. Okay. Let me turn this down a little bit. Alright, what I did was I installed the transformer there. I know a lot of people are like, ew, that looks terrible. Why'd you put all that glue on there? And the reason I did that is because there's real voltage inside of this chassis. And as unlikely as this is, if this were ever to break free, and you had those exposed contacts there and it bounced around inside of that, that could potentially deliver real juice all the way back through the cable. So I make sure that all the protruding little bits and pieces on these are kind of sealed up. And what I did also is I tried to eliminate as much of the wiring in the circuit as possible, so the ground goes immediately to the chassis because, you know, it's a chassis ground set and it makes sense. And then the positive goes to the top of the volume control. And it's actually pretty clean now. I think I got rid of, well, the other thing too is I've forgotten to resolder back in this one capacitor. There was a cap coming off of the rectifier, and what else is that going to? It's going to that big resistor. Anyway, that was not going to ground, so that could have been causing a sound problem, but it's pretty clean sounding now.
Daily little flowers are nodding away the hours and sending the summer showers home. This is baby's birthday party day. Everyone's invited, the neighborhood's so excited, they're coming with such delight and smiles. This is baby's birthday party day.
I don't understand. People going to a baby's birthday party. Anyhow, it seems to be working pretty good now. Now, what I'm going to do now is attach an antenna, but I think what I'm going to do is actually have the antenna inside the case. So I'm going to look around for some loop antennas.
Now I go cleaning windows to earn an honest bob. For a nosy Parker, it's an interesting job. Now it's a job that just suits me. A window cleaner you would be if you can see what I can see. When I'm cleaning windows, honeymooning couples too, you should see them billing too. You'd be surprised at things they do. When I'm cleaning windows in my profession, I'll work hard, but I'll never stop. I'll climb this blinking ladder till I get right to the top. The blushing bride, she looks divine. The bridegroom, he is doing fine. I'd rather have his job than mine. When I'm cleaning windows.
All right, I couldn't resist. I was thinking about what is some British song that I can think of, and I'm not up on my vintage 50s British music. I'm really sorry about that. But anyway, I remember hearing that on the radio years ago, and I thought it was freaking hilarious. I was like, yep, that'll do. That's probably about the time this radio was made. And so I decided to play that. So that is, as you guessed, coming in through the Bluetooth. It's working pretty good now. And it doesn't sound too bad either. You know, it'll sound even better when I put the back on. But, it's a little bit warm in there, but that's okay. It's to be expected. I did do some repairs on the back, and don't worry, you won't see most of this repair because it is on the inside. There's a hole busted through here. There's a little bit that came through right there, but I just want to make sure this is good and solid because this is another factor of keeping people out of the radio. Even this is especially thick. So I'm not saying they wouldn't do it or they couldn't do it, but it's a lot easier. I mean, it's a lot harder for them to do it if you've got a good thing to go through.
Don't go to strangers, darling. Come to me. Play with fire till your fingers burn. And when there's no place for you to
Alright, calling me ignorant. I just typed in YouTube, play me some early 50s British music, and that's what came up. I'm not sure if that's British or American, so sue me, whatever. I'm ignorant. But anyway, I almost finished it last night, and I realized the back, there was actually a piece used to hold the back on that was missing. There's these corners with these little clasps here, and I was like, you know, this is a hot chassis. It needs to make sure, it's really going to hold. You really can't see it behind the washer, but what I did is I cut a little block of wood, and I had to notch it so that this would fit, you know, just nice and snug like that. And see how that makes it to where it's good and solid. I know that looks kind of ugly, but that's kind of stiffening up that back a little bit because you don't want anyone to touch that. I'm not saying it's impossible. You'd have to try pretty hard to shock yourself on this thing, but we'll may put a GFCI plug on it anyway. I'll just have to see what the people at the museum say. But as far as this episode of Radiorama is concerned, that's pretty much it. And hope I didn't make any British radio collectors over the pond upset with anything I did. I tried to make it look nice. I'm not sure what these are worth. I'm not sure if anyone will want to buy this here. It may wind up in the museum. I'm not sure. But the good news is that it works and it's not become dumpster fodder. So thanks so much for watching. Until the next time a radio comes across my workbench, I see you guys later. Bye-bye.